Welcome to another episode of Strength Culture Presents Quantum Lifting Podcast, chapter 63. Today I'm joined with Pete Coleman, Dr. Pete Coleman, and Jamie Bouziotis. We're going to be discussing the 4 agreements today, which we'll go into detail now. But it's a book that Jamie B actually bought as a gift for how many people? 6 people at the gym, 6, 7 people.
Yeah, you, Jamie, Litho, Paddy, and Nikita bought 5.
5, 6 copies, and then lost his own copy.
Yeah.
Did you find your
I
own?
already read it, so it's okay. Now Nikita did me the favour, and she's going to return it, but I haven't got it back. So at some point,
Is that your copy? You know how you lost.
Yeah, I bought an extra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pete already had the copy of the book, but I'll lead. We can shoot it over to you, Pete. I know you wanted to read out what the 4 agreements are. So I think we should start with that so people know straight away what we're talking about. But you're going to read the 4 agreements. The book looks like this. Very small read, 100%. We believe at Strength Culture that everyone should read it or have a copy or borrow a copy or get a copy. Great time to read it in this period. Very quick read. I'm a slow reader. It took me a week to finish. Very easy. So Pete, lead us away.
No drama. So the 4 agreements are written by Don Miguel Ruiz, who's a teacher and shaman in the Toltec tradition in Mexico. And the 4 agreements, as Charlie was saying, it's a pretty short book, and it's really good because the 4 agreements themselves are pretty clear and relatable. So the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. So speak with integrity, say only what you mean, avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. So number 2 is don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you're immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Agreement number 3, don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. And agreement number 4, always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. So those are the 4 agreements.
The 5th agreement too, which is a separate book.
Yes, and I think we should do a whole separate podcast on that one.
We'll do that. My question is, you discussed Toltec, it comes from a background of Toltec wisdom. What exactly is that? You said it's from a Mexican sort of spiritual.
Yeah, so it's Central American, South America. I don't really know that much about the Toltec tradition, to be honest. It's centered around the pyramids outside of Mexico, the Teotihuacan pyramids, but I don't really know that much about it. But I think his father and grandfather and so forth were a part of this lineage. But I haven't read much into the Toltec. Have you, Jamie B?
Nah, but I've just pulled it up on Wikipedia. So yeah. It's pre-Aztec.
Yeah.
So the Aztec culture saw the Toltecs as their intellectual and cultural predecessors and described Toltec culture emanating from Tolton as the epitome of civilization. So they sound like they're big heavies.
Yeah.
Big heavies.
So I'm wondering, Jamie B, why did you get What spoke to you after of reading the Four Agreements?
It's just every page, every little bit that I read, it was just so applicable to everyday life, every situation that I've found myself in. I guess just a lot of thoughts, whether negative or positive, like it just resonated with me. And I knew that every time I thought about something after reading the book, dots were connected. And it's just like, it just makes sense that everything comes back to those four agreements. If you follow them to a T, which is impossible, but if you were to follow them to a T, it just could be, I felt like it could be the cure for a lot of, I guess, a lot of the pain that we inflict on ourselves just from shit thought or shit action. That was what spoke to me about it. Just like from the first agreement itself, be impeccable with your word. Like, not just outwards, not just you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it, but more with the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you talk to your friends, the way that you talk to your family. I thought that was just like that was massive. And then you've got the second through to fourth agreement, which are just all as equally as important, but they hold true with pretty much every single situation that I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely, with being impeccable with your word, it's definitely something that I find, because when you can catch yourself gossiping or talking negative things about other people or talking negative things about yourself, it can be quite destructive. And it's also, I find, no real use to, it's not really productive to anything being negative about someone or gossiping about someone. It's kind of like, is that saying that great minds talk about ideas, small minds talk about events, and like even smaller minds talk about people. But it's like, I'd rather be on the end of the spectrum talking about ideas, concepts, philosophy, things that's going to help sort of make yourself flourish and grow and the people around you, rather than gossip and drama and crap. And sometimes it's very easy to get sucked into that stuff. So it's important to ensure you surround yourself with people who are like-minded. And we often, here at Strength Culture, we put bans on talking about things like that. And if one of us catches the others talking about something like that, we pull each other up. And then, it can be really helpful. So having a good environment to support you through these agreements can be really, really helpful. And that's something that we've harped on about for a very long time at Strength Culture, is the environment. And that's why we're so big on the gym environment and who we hang out with and stuff. And I know Jamie often says that he only has like 4 friends now, because he just doesn't see the point in giving his time or effort to other people.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I think a really important one with the being impeccable with your word, and all of them really, is he's very big on that also being applied to yourself and how you speak to yourself. The book I'm reading at the moment, The Voice of Knowledge, which is also by him, reiterates that point a lot. And in the Four Agreements, he says self-rejection is the biggest sin that you can commit. And he also says in it, when you are impeccable, you take responsibility for your actions, but you do not judge or blame yourself. I think that's a really important distinction, because, oftentimes with any of these kind of practices where you're trying to implement something like being impeccable with your word, and you find yourself gossiping or whatever, it can be a real excuse to then be very self-critical. And the point that he reiterates is equally talking negatively to yourself about yourself is, as he describes, the biggest sin you can commit. So it's neither, it's taking responsibility for your actions, but it's not using it as a method to further self-recriminate. Yeah.
Because it's almost putting the agreement of, I guess, a negative self-view, it's making that concrete. Well, that's what he refers to. Pretty much everything that you think at the start is an agreement. Any sort of belief you have, that's an agreement. So if you think of yourself as stupid, for example, and every single time you echo that, if you make a mistake or do something bad or you aren't impeccable with your word and you keep repeating that, I'm stupid, you're further solidifying that in your own mind. And that's, I guess, not an example of being impeccable with the word, because it's solidifying that. I like that as well. The thought of everything as a belief is an agreement.
Yeah.
And everything that you already believe, whether or not, like, and like you said, it's the whole free will thing. Like, you don't really have a choice of what your agreements are. But it's almost like you could forget every single one of them and follow the 4 that are presented in this book, and you will live a life that's free and that is going to benefit not just yourself but everyone else. And I think that's pretty big to me, that 4 agreements can pretty much apply to everything, which is, yeah, my biggest thing with that book. I think it's unreal.
Sorry, you go, Charlie.
I was going to say, it becomes very easy. It's easy to have 4 very distinct things that you can just follow, and you can almost in any situation bring yourself back to one of these 4 things, have a shift in perspective, and then react differently to that situation because you're following these 4 little dot points that are just very easy to. They're just there. You just have them like in your pocket, in your mind, whenever you're ready to use them.
I think that don't take anything personally is a really interesting one as well, because that really speaks to the fact that what we think of other people and what other people think of us is necessarily a projection of their own thinking. So that for us to take anything personally, is to misunderstand that people are going to project their story of you onto you. And that then plays into the 5th agreement, which is also, why I won't go into that because that's a whole separate story. But the whole idea really that it's so easy to take things personally, and even take things that someone hasn't even said to you personally. Like someone might be like having a bad day or whatever and behave in a certain way. And it's so easy to take that personally, and it may have, very likely won't have anything to do with you. That's so much of what we do, because we're so wrapped up into the story of our own ego, that we take everything personally, but we fail to realize that people are ultimately not really relating to you. They're relating to their story about you.
Yeah. And it's also, in a lot of situations, if you, let's say you had a bad retail experience, you walk into a shop and the retail person is really rude to you, it almost doesn't matter who walked into that shop at that point. They were going to be rude because, let's say they've had a really bad day. Their boss has been screaming down their back all day. They've got a sick child at home, and they're fighting with their husband, and they're at it's at the end of the day, and they're done. It's 4 o'clock, and you walk in and they're really rude and abrupt, and you take it personally. It doesn't really matter who walked in at that point. Any person that walked in would have got that rude, abrupt experience, and it's not the reflection of the person walking in. It's just that the state that other individual retail assistant is at. And that's why it's important to not. I find myself often referring back to that one. It's like this individual would be like this with anyone right now. It's not you. It's easier said than done sometimes, because you can sort of, as you said, get wrapped up in your own ego and be like, oh, it's about me.
Just on that, there's a cool quote from Don Miguel about it. He goes, it's just like, what others say is not a reality, it's a projection of who they are. But if it hurts you, it's not them who hurt you, it's you who has a wound. And that's pretty big. Like, if it does hurt you to that extent, it's not just a projection anymore. You're letting it get to you for a specific reason. There's obviously like an insecurity or an underlying problem there that you're dealing with if it's hurt you that bad.
Yeah, it's your
If it gets to you, it must be because you on some level believe it, right? Because you must believe it as well. Because if someone were to come to you and say, Jamie, your skin color is blue, like you look like a Smurf, your skin is blue, you're not going to get upset about that because you know that your skin isn't blue, right? But then they say something else to you, like you're a loser or whatever, and there's a part of you that believes that, then that will wound you.
Yeah, without a doubt.
it's your, it's your own thoughts about the what they've said that is doing the damage. And I actually had that same thought process when I did the Wim Hof breathing, which you've been doing as well. And I did it, and I was sitting there, and I was like in sort of a bit of a meditative state, and I realized I was like, because I have been in this period, there's been a few times where I felt down and sad and a bit flat. And I realized it's not actually the feeling that's causing it, it's the thoughts of the feeling. And that's the whole thing with the learning to distance yourself from it, was that, I was like, it's not actually the feeling itself that's causing this, it's your thoughts about the feeling and how you're observing. You're bringing it into like reality, which I thought was cool. And you immediately sort of can make some distance between that. That was a little bit off. It was it wraps into don't take anything personally, because you're creating, in this instance, it's just you're creating yourself.
Yeah.
It's there. It's not anyone doing anything to you, but yeah.
Well, it's almost like you don't even take your own thoughts personally. Is the next level to it, because you realize your thoughts are just thoughts. They're just weather passing through your mind. That's why he talks about in the voice of knowledge. Like, we have this liar in our brain that's telling us all these stories all the time running through our minds. And the problem isn't actually with the thoughts, but that we believe them to be true. So that is the ultimate of taking things personally. We take our own thoughts personally. We believe that they're true. We believe they're actually saying something true about ourselves, and then they harm us because of our own belief in them.
Definitely. Sam Harris says, detach from the self. The thoughts aren't you. Observe the thoughts. Know that they're there. They're present. What can you do to almost remedy the thoughts? Like, look into the thought and it'll probably disappear. That's the biggest one. And that, I feel like that is what allows you to detach, not to get caught in the whirlwind of it, because that's the easiest part. And it's the part that, why am I thinking this? Oh my God. It starts to get to you. It's detaching from it, observing that you're having that thought. Well, it's okay to have that thought. It's just not to get caught up in the whirlwind of, and it's more of an avalanche, really. One thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And I feel like that's what drives a lot of anxiety. It's definitely what had driven a lot of my anxiety previously, pre-meditation, mindfulness, thought, like any of this sort of thought process. It would always be like just a whirlwind. And then it would just be, I am the thought, pretty much. And that I was definitely taking it personally.
It's like when you go to watch a movie, you don't get caught up in the storyline. You go into the cinema, you watch the movie, and you leave. You're like, oh, it was a good movie, whatever, and then you detach from the plot itself or the story. Even though in the movie, you might actually get caught up a little bit in emotions and feeling what the character did, but then immediately after, you switch off, and it doesn't continue then to carry on into your life for a week. And it's the same with thoughts, is you need to be able to sit there and create the distance between the thoughts and not take your own thoughts personally.
Yeah.
But also I found that doing meditations with a positive intention thought can help a lot as well. I know they've done the research on the I haven't got it. I can't remember exactly specifically off my head what plants they used. They used plants, and they basically had speakers that were, one speaker was like real negative real negative language. The other group was real positive gratitude, like affirmations. And they found that the plants in that group grew and flowered better and grew quicker. And it's the same as the study that Jamie uses in our seminars about the dental students who, under exam stress, took 40% longer for their dental wounds to heal compared to the other group, which were not under exam stress. So I've found that having really positive, when I'm meditating, having a positive thought, and it can just be like, I'm grateful for me. I'm grateful for me. It's like just saying something like that, like 20 times over with the breath, can have a really positive result or positive outcome when you can actually feel quite a lot better. Like taking
agreement with yourself by doing that.
Yeah.
In agreement with yourself. I would like to get that study. I would like to find that study with the plants. Because I know Dr. Bruce Lipton, who has written The Biology of Belief, also has done research like that with cells.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. And how the external environment affects them.
And then with the don't make assumptions, next agreement. Number three, find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. It communicates clearly sadness and drama. And then with this just one agreement, you can completely transform your life. And that, for me, really hugely resonates to don't make assumptions, because I make assumptions all the time about what people are thinking and what their intentions are and so forth. And unless you actually have the courage to ask them, or you have the courage to articulate what you want as well, you become incredibly lost in a, again, the beliefs and the narrative inside your own mind. Because, I mean, we make assumptions just constantly, all the time, about what we're thinking people think or their intentions are or what they want or don't want, and how life is going to act. Worrying is probably one of the biggest forms of assumption, because you're assuming life's going to, go a particular way. Very rarely goes the way you think it's going to go.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful one, I think, the don't make assumptions.
Yeah, I think it's a huge one on like a specific level. Like I feel like focusing on that in a relationship, like this has been the longest relationship I've ever been in with Nikita. And even though like it is the longest, it's still assuming that she knows how I'm feeling at any specific time. It'd be stupid, and it would create issues within the relationship. If I feel a certain way about something and I keep that bottled up, there's going to be almost like, why doesn't she know what's going on inside my head? She should know me. Like it's not a feasible, or just it's not an expectation to have, because it's impossible. And same with her. Like if she was bottling something up and something bugged her, and she assumed that I knew what was going on, I would just wish she would just tell me, and it would be done over. It'd be easy to fix. Anything's easy to fix like that if you just say what it is, not assume that someone's going to understand how you're feeling. I think it's been a big one for my relationship, definitely, to do that, like in enhancing the quality. That is, it's much easier to do that than it is just to be like, oh well, at some point she'll figure out what's going on in my head and be able to mind read me. It's essentially what I'm expecting her to do by assuming. So that's a big one, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the don't make assumptions one's big. But what I found that has worked really well, and I've liked this guy, I learned this one from Byron Katie from a book, is that asking yourself, whenever you do feel like you make an assumption, or you're thinking about this person did that, or that person did something, and that they did that to annoy me, then you immediately ask yourself, is this true? Then you go, well, actually, I don't know for sure if it's true, which means, why am I sitting here contemplating and hypothesizing what might or might not be true? Because I don't know for certain that that person did that to annoy me or to piss me off or to, yeah. And I found that has worked quite well. Is this true?
Yeah, I mean, the very question, is it true, can completely change your life, because on that whole don't make assumptions level, because, you know, you really can't know. You get to the point where you know really very, very little about what's going to happen. And then you know, even with your memories of things, you know, they're so filled with assumptions about what someone else was feeling or thinking, or why they treated you that way, or why they did this and that, etc., etc. And then again, the only thing you can ever really come back to reliably is yourself and your own thinking and your own, you know, the assumptions you're making. And you can't really know what other people are thinking or feeling. And even if you ask them, they may not be honest with you. You don't know, but at least you can always be clear and communicate clearly as well.
It's like I've had someone has said something to me, real like just abrupt, a bit hurtful, whatever, and you go and then think about it for 2 days. But to that person, they might not have even thought about what they said. They might not have even meant what they said. They might not have even thought about it once again after that incident. It hasn't bothered them at all. And you're sitting there, oh, this person doesn't like me. They don't like how I do this, how I do that. Well, and they haven't even thought anything of that. It was literally, again, it was just a spur of the moment thing. They, whatever reason, they reacted that certain way. But yeah, I found it's been helpful with those situations to not make assumptions.
Yeah.
Because it's just, yeah, you don't know the truth.
There's another cool quote I found on that one, just to, I guess, finish off the third agreement. But we often jump to negative conclusions because we're afraid of a negative judgment. So it's our way to hit first and shield our ego from the pain of rejection.
Crazy.
Yeah.
What about positive? We seem to never go to positive thought spirals. Why is that not the case? Always negative. And the only answer I can think of is that when I went to see Greg Lehman, in terms of pain, so this is pain with injuries, he said it's for survival purposes, it's better to overreact than underreact. So if we're Homo sapiens surviving this long, 150,000 years, if we were foraging for berries in the bush and we heard a noise, it's better to think that's a lion trying to kill us than just a deer walking by. So for survival purposes, it's better to overreact than underreact. Somehow we've gotten to this point where society is pretty safe. We live we're protected by society, but we still have those overreactions and that those survival mechanisms at play, but they get triggered in different ways, and then we just spiral out in a negative. You know?
Well, it sounds like I've got no idea, but it sounds like it would be a protective mechanism. Like if you look at the don't take anything personally, like you could instantly look at, it's like the whole wound thing. Like if someone says something to you, you'd be like, you know, why are they saying that? It's on them. But it's not like you're trying to protect yourself pretty much, or you protect your ego from taking that hit. I think that's probably the biggest thing. It sounds protective. Like if you go to worst case, it's like, how can I protect myself in this situation?
It's exactly what Greg Lehman was talking about with injuries and pain. It's like if you have back pain, it's better they overreact because it's better to overreact than underreact to protect your back. And he got us to hold our breath. And after like 30 seconds, he's like, you want to give up and just breathe. But he's like, you can go minutes with holding your breath. Like David Blaine's done 17 minutes. Like it's possible, but we overreact straight away because it's better to overreact than underreact for survival. And that's the only reason I can think is that it's protection. So why don't we spiral out positively?
Well, because the way Byron Katie explains it is that the ego doesn't exist. So the ego is trying to create this identity for itself and maintain an identity of itself as a separate, independent, standalone entity, which none of us are ultimately, you know. And so the ego creates this story, the drama and the negativity and so forth. It's trying to stay real. It's trying to convince us that it's real, but it's not. Ultimately, the ego is not real. It's just a construct
of the mind.
And so it's not real. And so for that reason, that's why it's actually, he talks about this in The Voice of Knowledge. So that might be the one to read next.
Miguel Ruiz.
So yeah, that's why I would say it doesn't naturally spiral positive, because that doesn't serve the ego's purpose.
I guess that's where the practice of gratitude comes from. It's trying to look at life from the other perspective, instead of being like, oh, I suck at my job, I should get a pay rise, I had a fight with my girlfriend, I want to go on holiday, I want to do all that. Instead of being like, hey, I've got an amazing house, I've got great friends, I've got an awesome job, I get, people look up to me, we never go on that thought spiral of. And I guess that's where we have to make the conscious effort to practice some sort of gratitude, because I definitely found gratitude helps me quite a bit when I do practice it. I've been a bit slack with it, but we all have our downfalls.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking of which, the last agreement, always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse and regret. The interesting thing is with that, which I really like, he says, don't try to do more than your best. And I think a lot of us do try to do more than our best.
What would be an example of doing more than your best?
Well, working huge hours or trying to not being honest with yourself about your limitations, pushing yourself too far, burning yourself out, I would think would be a really good example of more than your best.
Yeah, it was something that Ryan Holiday said, that he goes, successful people they don't have to pump hours into what they're doing. It's just they just have to be consistent. One or two things done a day that are moving them in the direction of their goals. And it's the same as what we push with training. It's that consistency of effort over time. Going really, really hard for one training block isn't what's going to get you better. It's going to be being consistent over months and years. I think that's the same. So that's something I'm trying to apply with me, trying to get certain goals done in more of the academic field with work, writing, some pieces of writing and even podcasts. So just doing a little, setting up the other day, my goal for Instagram was literally I said one thing was to set up a link tree, my bio. And that was it. I'm and that's one thing I've done. That's going to potentially help me in the direction of getting.
I think that doing more than your best as well is more attachment to the end point than it is the action that you're doing.
Yeah.
And I know that's a shortcut to burnout. That's probably the first one that I can think of. And it's what are you working for at the end of the day? When you do reach that, it's going to be something else, and there's going to be a new endpoint, and there's going to be a new endpoint, and that, I guess, constant goal fixation or that outcome fixation is just, I don't know, it's a shortcut to mess, an internal mess. I feel that's
when you live life when you try and live just 10 seconds at a time, you can in this moment just pull yourself into that 10 seconds and be like, what am I doing? And just give it your all. And I find that helps sometimes with training for me when I cannot be bothered training. I don't want to train. It's well, you're already here now. You've warmed up. You may as well give this set a good crack. And it's because it's the previous 30 minutes where I felt like crap and didn't want to train, that's gone. The only thing I've got is the next 10 seconds. So I may as well just give it some effort. And you sort of can just live that 10 seconds at a time and not let the previous hour, the previous 5 minutes, the previous day dictate how this next 10 seconds goes. I think that works really well for me in that always doing your best.
What he says about doing your best is taking the action because you love it, not because you're expecting a reward. Most people do exactly the opposite. They only take action when they expect a reward and they don't enjoy the action. And that's the reason why they don't do their best. And then he also says not enjoying what is happening right now is living in the past and being only half alive. So I think that's a really important point about doing your best. It's not like grinding. It's actually about enjoying.
Yeah, and that would be me 100% with the guitar because, like, especially the first few months, you don't really see much progression. Like, you do a little bit, you know, whatever, but it's not like you're not playing songs or anything. It takes a few months. And that's why I think if anyone wants to test their patience, go learn a language or an instrument because it's just like our brain is a bunch of programs. What I've started to realize, it's just not like speaking the English language has just been programmed into us because we've been doing it for 20 years now, another 10 years for UP. It comes out, but you go learn a new language or a new instrument, something like I don't really come from a musical background, and you're trying to program this new program. It's so foreign, and you kind of have to do. You are doing your best because there's no immediate reward. The reward comes later on after you practice speaking a language for 6 months, a year, 2 years. Same with a musical instrument. I'm starting to see the reward of sitting with guitar for 7-8 months because now I can actually pick it up and just play a song. But it was very slow and frustrating to start, but I was kind of just doing it because I was like, oh, I want guitar. So I find it very easy to apply it to that because we tend to often gravitate to what we're good at, which is natural. We want to, and again, could be part of the ego. The ego wants to be it wants to know that it's good at what it does, so it goes towards what it's. What would your thoughts be on that?
Well, yeah, I mean the ego flourishes on fear as well. So it's like the fear of not being good enough, the fear of, and again that's a major form of not being able to do your best because when we're imprisoned by fear, we're not able to enjoy things. We're not able to sort of connect with our actions and live sort of authentically out of that. So that's really, I think, really true. Like where, you know, fear limits us from being able to do our best.
Interesting. I think there's a good quote to sum it all up, especially that one. It's from the Four Agreements. So there's a passage from it. It says, "You don't need to judge yourself, feel guilty, or punish yourself if you cannot keep these agreements. If you're doing your best, you'll feel good about yourself, even if you still make assumptions, still take things personally, and still are not impeccable with your word. If you do your best always, over and over again, you will become a master of transformation." Like we said, that if you're fixated on all those things and trying to do more than your best, if you're focusing on never making an assumption, never taking things personally, never being impeccable with your word, or never not being impeccable with your word, I think that's, yeah, like we said, that is when the guilt, the self-judgment, self-punishment will start getting into it because you are trying to do more.
Yeah.
Give those a good crack. You're probably going to feel great most of the time. And knowing that you did your best, even if you didn't hit that, I guess, that marker, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Do we have any final point? I feel like that's a very good quote to sort of finish on.
I like that one to end on. Yeah.
Things we want to wrap it up with. You know, good. Not really good.
Oh, here we go. Here's a good final quote from him. Maybe we cannot escape from the destiny of the human, but we have a choice: to suffer our destiny or to enjoy our destiny, to suffer or to love and be happy, to live in hell or to live in heaven.
Crazy. Because I've spoken before with Andy Kay, we talk about, because he's big on the Bible and religion and stuff, but even the Bible, like it's heaven and hell is a metaphor for here on earth. So like you either creating your own hell or your own heaven.
Yeah.
It's not an actual place that we go. It's not a place after. So you've got the choice. Interesting. Good quote to finish on.
Awesome.
We'll wrap it up there, and we will do, if anyone is listening to this, you got to the end, make sure you do get yourself a copy of the 4 agreements, hard copy or audible, some form. Very, very, very good read. And then hopefully it'll make this podcast a little bit clearer if you haven't already read the book or listened to the book. But we highly recommend that. We do think, as we said, it's a necessity. People should read it, get a copy of it, especially in this time when there's a lot of free time.
Have a read.
Get on to it.
And for that, we'll wrap it up. We'll come back with a 5th agreement. We'll do the 5th agreement at some point. But yeah, thank you for your time, guys. And we'll.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.